Good afternoon to all of you. Our next session will be commenced by Dr. Vijay Raghavan on the topic Engaging Youth as Advisor for Youth Mental Health and Research Awareness. The session will be chaired by Dr. IRS Reddy and Dr. C. Paneerselvam. I welcome you to take the stage, sir. Dr. IRS Reddy, Chairperson, MD, DPM from NIMHANS, 39 years of experience in the field of psychiatry. Served as National Resident Indian Psychiatric Society 2007 and President AARC Psychiatric Federation 2007. Published articles in national and international journals and also edited a book, Career Planning for Youth Psychiatrists. Wrote 9 books in Telugu on mental health problems. Dr. C. Paneerselvam, Chairperson, MD from NIMHANS, Chief Consultant and Managing Director, Sneha Mental Health Center, biggest psychiatric center in South Tamil Nadu. State Representative for IPS Tamil Nadu Chapter to IPS South Zonal Branch. Areas of interest: General Psychiatry, De-Addiction and Community Outreach.
Shall we start? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. And this is a very important session. Initially, I was thinking that it's a very dry topic. This topic is also was very new to me. But after discussing with Vijay Raghavan, I came to know that it's a very interesting topic, especially for the youth, young psychiatrists, and also for the community-oriented work. It is mainly the on engaging youth. Youth means not psychiatry medicos or our psychiatric residents, youth from the society or community, as advisors for youth mental research and awareness. I think I am also eagerly waiting what Vijay Raghavan and his team is going to deliberate on this. Here we have got 2 speakers, 2 psychiatrists, and another 2 youth from the community. Anyway, just where I am also waiting for that, and now I'll ask our other chairperson, Dr. Paneerselvam, to say a few things about this. Then we'll go to the session. Already we are about 45 minutes late. So I request the speakers also. Actually, it is scheduled to be 90 minutes. I think we'll try to make it in 60 minutes so that we can manage some time. Over to Dr. Paneerselvam.
Thank you, sir. Today we have an excellent topic, that is engaging youth as advisor for youth mental health research and awareness. Is going to talk by Dr. Vijay Raghavan. Dr. Vijay Raghavan is from Chennai. He is a consultant psychiatrist of Schizophrenia Research Foundation, SCARF. And he has done his PhD research scholar in psychiatric genetic and the head of SCARF Youth Mental Health Program in Chennai. And he has published more than 50 research articles in journals and contributed to the psychiatry book chapter as the IPS Task Force of Undergraduate Psychiatry. And also he has a numerous professional affiliation pertaining to mental health and received research grant also. So the topic youth engagement. We all know that India is a country which has the highest number of youth in the world. So our Indian population, more than 30% of Indian population consists of youth. We know that the alcohol problems, substance abuse problems, suicide, and many psychiatric conditions emerging in youth. So the youth is constituted of more than 1/3 of our population, but the opportunities given to the youth is very less. So the youth, their problems is enormous, especially in this COVID period. They are not giving opportunity because we as an adult, we think that youth have less skill, they don't have any knowledge about these things. But what research says that if you engage youth in mental health promotions, or you engage youth in community-related activities, then the outcome will be enormous. That was research says. And it's a new topic, as Dr. I.R.S. Reddy has said, and Dr. Vijay Raghavan will enlighten us regarding youth engagement in mental health promotion and as an advisor for youth mental health research and awareness. Yes, Dr. Vijay Raghavan, it's over to you.
Good afternoon, one and all. Thanks, chairpersons, distinguished delegates, and my dear friends. First, I must thank the organizing committee of the South Zone for giving us an opportunity to stand in front of this esteemed crowd and talk and discuss and share our experience of working with youth in our youth mental health program. Importantly, our topic is going to be engaging youth as advisors for youth mental health research and awareness. For this, we are not only going to talk about how to engage with youth as advisors in research and awareness, we will be also talking about how we can engage with youth, take them as advisors in clinical services also. So the whole topic is going to be divided into three major areas like research, awareness, and clinical services. I would be giving a very large overview of what it is and what we are trying to do and things like that. And three of my colleagues will be enlightening you on each of this topic about some of the principles of it, and also they will be talking about how we are using these principles in our research, in our awareness creation, and in our clinical services. As Dr. Pannisalam rightly put, India is a very young country. Nearly 30% of the population is between 10 to 24 years of age. Before going into that, we need to have some basic ground on what are the definitions on young people, youth, adolescents, and things like that, so that we will be able to focus on where we are working and our context. According to World Health Organization, we have various definitions, like young people is between 10 to 24 years of age, youth is 15 to 24 years of age, and adolescence is 10 to 17 years of age. And there is one another called young adult, which is 18 to 24 years of age. In a sense, we are trying to work with young people as a larger audience because the needs of these people, these young people, are very uniform in some sense, and also there is a huge amount of growth during this period, and people engaging or in this period have a lot of difficulties and they have a lot of growth opportunities, like they grow in the physical, cognitive, and emotional, and also in social problems. So at the same time, they also have a lot of stressors, and it is really important to engage with these young people to understand them better, to know what actually they want and how we will be able to help them. At the same time, we are talking this youth mental health from more a larger perspective, like from the communities also, not only from a very clinical perspective, but from community perspective also. In the communities, young people have a lot of difficulties. At the same time, it is not only about difficulties, it is about promotion of mental health also. It is not only that they are needing of depression and anxiety, but they also need how to build resilience, how to become better persons and have a better social skills and things like that, that from the promotion aspect of it. At the same time, they also want preventative aspects, like how to prevent themselves from mental health issues, mental disorders and others, and yearly access to care and treatment also. All these aspects are from the community of the youth mental health itself. So in all these aspects, what we as mental health professionals think is that we can think for them, and we provide some of the interventions which is very much think that is feasible and workable. But when we are trying to implement these kind of interventions that what we think as important or feasible for the young people, sometimes it fails and many times it fails. So it is really important to engage with young people as early as possible and ask them what actually they need and how they need, what they need, and then able to build in interventions involving them, not only at the planning stage, but also at the implementing stage, and also the evaluation stage, and also dissemination stages, so that it will be more a comprehensive way of taking up youth mental health research and also awareness and disseminating things. In this regard, the first thing that we have done is SCARF has initiated a youth mental health project or program as such. It is in work from 2018, and where we are working not from a clinical perspective, but we are working from a very larger perspective of youth as a community itself. We have to work as a youth in the communities. We have to address them. Since sitting in a clinic and seeing the patients who are coming to us, young people who are coming to us, it is very difficult to understand the magnitude of the issue. At the same time, the people who are coming to us may have clinical disorders. But what about the young people who are having distress in the communities and things like that? So it is really important that we should concentrate on the youth in the communities as such. But to address or to reach all young people in the community as a whole, I think it is very difficult for mental health professionals. Number of professionals in our country are less. It is very difficult for us to reach that. So somehow we have to work with young people through peers and other things. And also families and communities are really important. We have to work with schools and colleges, workspaces, and also other communities where there are gatekeepers, where we can able to train those gatekeepers on youth mental health, make them as resource persons and understand them, help them to make sure that young people are access help whenever there is a need. And there is academic institutions. There is a huge scope for health professionals also to be learnt about youth mental health. Other departments like pediatrics, general medicine, we should be also talking with other peers, social workers, psychologists also, so that it is a collective responsibility of identifying problems in young people and trying to help them. And at last is the clinical services. We will be talking about in all these aspects and how research and awareness can be done in all these things. I'm going to give a very broad view, and I think all my colleagues will be talking about each and every topic one by one, so that I will give a very large perspective. Youth as advisors basically means that we are identifying young people from the community who are interested to discuss and talk about youth mental health and their needs, making them on board on your research or our awareness platforms, so that you will be able to hear what they actually want and what they actually how to hear it. For example, in schools and colleges, if at all we want to give an awareness creation program, as mental health professionals, we can sit and think about, okay, let us go to the school and try to talk about youth mental health for 20 minutes or 30 minutes and come back and thinking that it will have an impact among young people. But that's not so. We have to sit with young people from the schools and colleges or whomever the audience is and ask them what are the things, because whenever we talk about youth mental health to young people, we might think about talking about anxiety, depression, substance use and things like that. But in a larger perspective, many young people do not want those kind of things. Yeah, there's a need for that, but a section of the young people would be needing that. But nearly 80% of the young people might ask about sleep disturbances or relationship issues and other aspects, which is also coming under the purview of mental health itself, and it's our responsibility to provide those things if young people wants that. So it is really important that whenever we are trying to create anything, either in research, even in research, as researchers, we might think that these are the research questions that is really important for young people. But again, it is not so. It is important that we engage with young people and ask them what that you want to see in the research itself, and how it is not only about the research question itself, but how the research to be conducted. What are the things that you think it might affect you? When you will be more participatory if the research is designed in a particular way. In all these things we will be talking about in a short. And in the clinical services, Dr. Shiva Prakash should be able to talk about how to develop clinical services in such a way that it is youth friendly, how to engage with young people for a longer period of time and prevent dropouts. One another thing that which is very close to my heart is youth leadership in the communities itself. This is a little bit offbeat in what we are trying to do, but youth leadership as such, young people should take leadership, and they should be the persons who should be talking about what is actually that is needed for them and how to communicate with other leaders in the, for example, mental health leaders. And we also, this is one of the programs that we have done in one of the rural communities near Chengalpet, where young people are youth leaders, where how they are able to engage with mental health professionals. At the same time, they are also able to engage with other resources. Like we think from a very psychiatric point of view that, okay, young people, they are in stress, we have to provide some sort of a stress relief and things like that. But from the community point of view, young people think that all the other resources like learning English or learning or getting a job, all these things are also important for their promotion of mental health and prevention of mental disorders. So as youth leaders, they are able to identify these are the areas. It's not only from mental health point of view. What are the other areas that young people want, and they are able to provide those kind of things to young people in the communities. So youth leaders as a group of people who are able to see the holistic view and able to provide interventions for young people is also really important. In all these things, the one thread that covers everyone is involving youth and making them advisors and making them actively involved with all the research activities or awareness creation and clinical services is the crux. Okay, I would stop now and I would request my colleagues to start talking about each and every aspect. I think Ms. Sanjana is here. Sanjana is a youth advisor and she would be talking in how she as a youth advisor in one of our research projects is able to articulate about what she has gone through and what are the learnings she has learned over a period of time as youth advisors in research itself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sanjana, and I thank the committee and the chairpersons for this opportunity. I'm going to speak to you about my experience as a youth advisor and involving young people in mental health research. So, firstly, let's start with what are some benefits of involving young people in science in mental health research. From a researcher's point of view, there are new insights. Perspectives and opinions of young people really help refine research. And with the research project that we are currently working, which I'm going to be presenting in some time, we have actively involved young people at every stage of the research project. How does involving young people give new insights? They help us ask. Thank you. Yeah. They help us ask more relevant questions. They help us align the research to more of youth needs and youth priorities. Also, in terms of the jargon we use, a lot of young people had mentioned that they don't understand a lot of scientific jargon when it comes to mental health research. How can we simplify that? How can we use jargon that's not very intimidating for young people? Improved accessibility of tools, forms, and questionnaires. Echoing my first point, including words that are easy to understand, easy to comprehend, make it a more accessible tool to be given to rural, urban parts of the city and to different stratas of youth. Critical to breaking down stigma. In the recent study that we have been doing, a lot of young people expressed how it's very intimidating to see a mental health professional. So I feel when we involve young people in research itself, it really helps in breaking down stigma. It helps in involving young people in the provision of services for themselves. Get a better understanding of the unique needs, challenges, and solutions of the youth. Recently, we did a study on loneliness, and we found that the prevalence of loneliness was very high among youth, as opposed to adults over 30 years of age. When we look back at literature, there is not a lot of scientific literature published in loneliness in India. So this was a study done in COVID, and we understood that this is a unique issue young people are facing, and there should be more interventions focused on that area. Young people helped identify gaps, so they help bridge the knowledge to action gap. So the study that we are doing is to understand what are the channels and actors young people seek for help. And most of them said if it was part of a curriculum, or if it was, if social media, YouTube, and things like those were used to disseminate information, it would be more helpful. Now, in the perspective of a young person, how does involving them help them? Research is more likely to be aligned with the priorities and issues of young people. It's going to be using youth voices to inform the research design, and hence the results of the research are more sustained and they are aligned to the needs and issues plus challenges the youth are facing. And also a lot of them mentioned that it could be a focus on more of social and cultural factors of mental health as opposed to just the biomedical model of mental health. Youth feel valued and like their voices are important, and they feel empowered sharing their stories. It addresses the power imbalance between a professional and a young person who's seeking help. As I mentioned, to make it a more safer place, the power imbalance that exists between the care provider and the service users can be eliminated when we involve them in research. It facilitates cross-disciplinary learning and networking. So involving young people from across disciplines really helps us enhance our understanding of mental health itself. Provides youth an opportunity to think clearly and harness leadership skills and feel part of a larger community, and they also feel very valued if they are able to contribute in a way to science and to mental health research. So this is 5 levels of youth engagement in health research. Affirmation, light consultation, interactive advice, co-production, and youth-led. I will be focusing on youth-led because that is the research strategy that we are using in our current study. Youth-led research is a fully driven by youth research, from conducting the research, understanding the data, data collection, analysis, dissemination of the data, youth are involved. So this is the Welcome CR study that we're currently working on, and to give you a brief of the study, it is focusing on individuals aged 14 to 24, and we want to understand where and how they go to seek help. The sites of this study, it's a cross-country study happening in Rwanda, India, Kenya, and South Africa. And this study does not just consider the treatment aspect of mental health, but also considers promotion and prevention. Now, why is this a youth-led approach to this research? It wants youth leaders, or it wants young people to be at the forefront, and it wants young people to be leaders of mental health care. Youth-led research also has been able to show that we are able to think beyond traditional pathways of thinking. We're able to bring in more ideas and more insights to refine the study. And strengthening the collaborations between youth, researchers, scientists, and policymakers. So, ways youth can participate in research. Determining the relevance of the study. Young people are, when approached, they really openly expressed about the needs and issues they are facing and helped us determine the relevance of our research. Prioritizing the questions. What kind of questions do we want to ask? What will be giving us a lot of exploration about youth mental health? Recruiting and retaining participants. As I had mentioned about the vocabulary used, ease of jargon, simplification of the tools used. Youth really help us in making that tool more accessible. And I'd like to give an example for the current study that we're doing. We prepared an interview guide, but we also had a youth advisory group where we had 5 young people who read the interview guide and gave their inputs. Which questions were difficult to understand, which were easy to navigate through. Use existing networks to advertise the study. We've been working with young people extensively, so we had networks and we reached out to these networks to get, be involved in the study. Participate in a trial run of the study. Now, the youth advisory group that I had mentioned was initially a participant group. They came in as youth participants and then were youth advisors for the program. They help us inform and refine the study design, and it also helps contribute to the perspective when we're analyzing the data. The last 2 stages of this research are, we intend to do it in the coming future. Now, how do we facilitate youth engagement in research? Emphasizing the importance and value of their inputs and what young people bring to the table. Listening to their concerns. Sometimes it almost feels like interventions are being made without having young people's consultations about it. Is that what they're looking for? Problem solving and brainstorming of ideas and solutions that can be feasible for young people. Strong leadership from the researcher and a willingness to adapt. Including diverse perspectives and reaching out to underrepresented groups. For the Welcome CR study, our sampling strategy includes participants from every social income group. We have specifically emphasized on all continuums of mental health. Positive mental health struggles and people with mental illnesses. Creating a safe environment for youth and acknowledging and valuing what they bring to the table and the expertise they come with. So this is my final remarks. My key learnings as an advisor has been talking to other people from other countries has been such a good experience, and also makes me realize that there's so much commonality. There's so many similarities even when we're in different contexts. It helped me understand the importance of collaborative learning and collaborative interventions. And individuals that we're catering to should be the ones that are informing the work we do, and their inputs and insights are very valuable to us. And there is a huge value in recognizing the nuances and the uniqueness of every young person's experience and interaction. The characteristics youth report that are most important to them when it comes to science and research is giving them agency, making them feel empowered and that they can express themselves. Flexibility of the implementation, providing services that are flexible, and personalization, like one size does not fit all, so customizing and personalizing interventions for young people. Thank you. I'd like to hand it over to my colleague Hanisha.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sanjana had spoken on engaging young people as advisors for youth mental health research. I'm going to be talking on engaging young people as advisors for youth mental health awareness. So I will be covering on theory of engaging young people and then strategies of engaging young people, barriers to engaging young people as advisors in mental health awareness program, and also how to reach out to youth to engage them as advisors. And then lastly, I'll be sharing my personal experience, volunteering experience with RHYMES, safe space for youth, driven by youth. First one is Roger Hart's ladder of participation. Here, what he explains is there are various degrees of participation when it comes to youth engagement. He says manipulation is when it's adult-led, but then, young people are not told about the purpose of the study. They do what they're asked to do. Second one is decoration, wherein it is again adult-led activities. They are explained about the purpose of the program, but then again they'll have to do what they are asked to do. When it comes to tokenism, they are consulted, but then they are not leading the program, right? When it comes to assigned but informed, they are given a role, but then, it's again adult-led activities wherein their inputs are not taken. Consulted and informed, adult-led activities in which youth are consulted and informed, wherein how their inputs are used in the program. Next one is adult-initiated shared decisions with youth, wherein adults, they sit with the young people and then they take the decisions together, but then again it's adult-led activity, right? The last two are the youth-led activities, wherein the youth initiated and directed is youth-led activities with little inputs from adults, and the final one is youth-led activities wherein they lead the activities and they share the decisions with the adults. Right, so when it comes to engagement strategies, how to engage young people meaningfully as advisors, right? So the first one is degrees of participation. We will have to involve them right from the beginning, right from, say, it could be funding decisions, agenda settings, it could be designing of the program, right? So we will have to involve them as active participants rather than, someone who's at the other end of the receiving end. So second one is clarity. We will have to give them clear information on the purpose of the program, what is their roles and responsibilities. That's when they can effectively engage or contribute to the program. Third one is capacity building. We will have to provide opportunities to young people to develop their strengths, to work on their weaknesses, and we will have to give trainings and opportunities for them, which is relevant to them as well. Impact. In a study, they said young people would want to, understand how their work is impacting actually. When it comes to how is it impacting the organization or how is it impacting the community as well. So when they know about their impact, they are able to, contribute more and then effectively engage. Recognize and reward is we will have to, appreciate them and validate them for the work they are doing, and then that would definitely help them to, contribute effectively. Barriers acknowledged, we will have to sit with youth and then understand what are the barriers, what are the challenges that they are facing when it comes to engaging, and then we will have to address it. Barriers to engagement. So when it comes to engaging young people as advisors, there are 4 things that we could look at. First one is intrinsic factors within young people. Second one is structural factors within young people. Third one, structural challenges within the organization. And fourth one is intrinsic factors within staff. So when it comes to intrinsic factors within young people, it could be the lack of confidence within an individual, right? Or it could be the language barrier that's stopping the young person to engage as an advisor. So we'll have to look into it. And then when it comes to structural factors, young people do have a lot of other priorities. It could be their education or other life commitments. So we will have to keep that in mind as well. When it comes to structural challenges within the organization, it could be lack of support from the organization side in terms of engaging young people. It could be lack of within the organization there could be a lot of barriers that stopping young people to engage. Last one is intrinsic factors within the staff. So when it comes to staffs, they will have to be open to multiple views, diverse views, and then they will have to be open to young people's opinion. So if they are indifferent to it, it could be one of the challenges. Reaching out to youth, first way could be reaching to educational and workplace settings wherein we could probably they are more in number when in schools and colleges, so reaching out to schools and colleges would work. And then I would say social media is a place wherein we could reach out to youth, a lot of youngsters these days. And there are a lot of existing youth networks. We could collaborate with them, we could reach out to them, and then we could see how we could be inclusive of bringing in people from different sectors, different backgrounds, right? Now, when it comes to benefits of engaging young people, we see it at 3 levels. First is benefits to youth, benefits to the awareness program, and benefits to the community. When it comes to benefits to youth, it definitely develops their confidence, it improves their skills, and they feel more empowered when they are part of awareness programs, when they are given voice to talk about their opinions and perspectives. When it comes to benefits to awareness programs, when we involve young people as advisors for awareness programs, they will be able to design activities which is in sync with what young people actually need. The programs that might interest young people, right? So that way it definitely helps the awareness program as well. And third thing is benefits to the community. If an young individual is involved in the program, definitely he or she is going to talk about it in her or his school or workplace settings, right? So thereby we are also taking it one step, and the engaging them helps them in the community level as well. So now I'm going to talk about my personal volunteering experience with a safe space for youth. It is called RHYMES, Resource Center for Youth Mental Health by SCARF. RHYMES is a non-clinical safe space for the youth of Chennai aged between 14 to 25 years. What we do at RHYMES, we conduct weekly events to promote mental health and also to start conversations around mental health. So the primary focus is to create a platform for youth to share their ideas, perspectives, fears, right, and to enable each other grow. When it comes to setting up the space, so I'd like to share this experience. I remember the day when it all started. So we were a group of 6 young people with Dr. Vijay, and we were talking to him about youth mental health and safe space. And then he said, now is the good time to start, and let's start. So since then, within a month, we inaugurated the safe space. When it comes to setting up the space, setting up the physical space, when it comes to designing the space inside, designing the spaces, materials needed and everything, we were the ones who did it, and Dr. Vijay and Dr. Shiv were there, guiding us throughout. So we will, as a 6, we will sit together and we will decide on, hey, where do we go and get the materials for the space, and what do we do, which is the photo frame that we'll have to select for the space, and all of this we were allowed to do. We were allowed to make mistakes, and then we were, guided along the way. So it is completely run by youth along with, mental health professional support. So youth focused, youth driven, and democratic and safe, completely everybody's opinion. I remember when there is a discussion, Dr. Shiv would go, okay, what do you think, what do you think, what do you think? Okay, now let's come to a conclusion. And then we were all given, space to voice our opinion, and accessible and co-localized. At RIMES, we collaborated with local networks, local youth networks, and then we also had a psychologist from SCARF always there with us whenever the events were happening, so that we always had, someone to go to if we had some issue. So this is what I was talking about, right from the concept stage till the functioning stage. Everything was done by us. So I remember when it comes to the space and implementing the programs. Before implementing the programs, I like to talk about designing the activities. When it comes to designing the activities, we'll sit together with another guide. Her name is Ms. Komal. So we will we'll brainstorm all the things that comes to our mind when it comes to the activities. And we will decide based on, say, if this month there is a 10th public exam, we'll make sure there is also a study skill session that's included. Or how can we make it interactive for young people to participate and learn. So activity designing happens, and then when it comes to implementation part, right from registration to opening, closing remarks of the chief guests, getting feedback from the participants, everything was given to us, and we were, the important point was we were allowed to make mistakes, and we were allowed to take decisions. So that is important, right? So we were given that space, and yeah. So yeah, when it comes to us participating, us engaging, it was in all levels: planning, organizing and implementation, and engaging new volunteers. So I volunteered with RIMES for 1.5 years, and then now there is a new bunch of volunteers. And even to recruit volunteers, we were given the space to, so all 4 of us were sitting together, and then I remember, we promoted it on social media, and then there were young people, and we interviewed them. We interviewed the young people, and we were, given that space of recruiting the next set of volunteers as well. Right, so this is the areas of development at RIMES. So when I spoke of the activity designing, what we did was we brainstormed on what are all the needs of young people, and the left one is that. So we did a, a diagram type, and then from that we got the 4 modalities on which we base our activities. Spaces at RIMES. We've named our rooms at the space. It's called Meraki, Babi Sabi, Moy. I'm sure still Dr. Vijay and Dr. Shiv thinks why would they name, bring in Japanese names, but then we were given, space for that as well. So when it comes to Meraki, it's the green space. We went and we got plants for the space. We watered them. We were there with the plants, taking care of them. And also we have our art supplies in the same room. When it comes to Wabi Sabi, no devices are allowed. If you want to be, away from your mobile phone, you could come and sit in the Wabi Sabi room. You will have to give your phones to us, and then you can go in, and there were musical instruments, books, and everything. And Moe is our, the room wherein we conduct big events, musical events, and everything. Okay, when it comes to events, the lecture types were very less. We didn't have any lecture type of events. It was all experiential. We used to have stand-up comedy, and then at the end of it, we'll have the stand-up comedian was having conversations on mental health. He will share his own experience struggling with mental health. We had movie discussion wherein we watch movies, and then we sit together and discuss on the mental health perspective of the movie. So everything was different and youth friendly, and we were always interested of how young people, how to attract them, and also raise mental health awareness. So these are the posters, and even the posters and everything, not all of us were trained in poster designing, but we all tried our hands, and so this is poster designing. Okay, who have we worked with? Total participants engaged from October to August 2011. Participants who came repeatedly 123. Total number of individual contacts 1306. Total number of events conducted 90. Total number of organizations or individuals engaged with less than 80. Total number of new volunteers taken in 11. Total number of volunteers graduated 9. So this is, I would like to read out. This is a feedback from one of our volunteers at Rhymes. So she says, today we have experience in budgeting and finance, content creation, graphic designing. Interestingly, public speaking and giving impromptu addresses doesn't scare us the way they previously did. This is all largely because we pushed each other to try the things we were afraid of. So take my word on this. At the end of your journey, here you would be amazed at how many things you will be able to do with ease and confidence, which were previously difficult to fathom. Right? So personally, to give my feedback, for me to be here to give this speech, I think Rhymes has helped me so much, because my confidence has improved at least 10%, and it is because we were given space to share our perspectives. We were allowed to make mistakes, and we were always given the support that we needed. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Hanisha. At the outset, I'd like to thank the organizers, the chairpersons, for giving us this opportunity to present our work. And it's really important that the work that Vijay, Hanisha, and Sanjana have been doing, because they've kind of laid the kind of basic groundwork in terms of what we need to do going forward. Even though this particular topic of youth-friendly clinical services is not included in the agenda, we figured that this would be something really important. And so I've got about 12 minutes, so I'm going to do a quick poll. How many of you are clinicians? You can raise your hand. It can be mental health professionals. Okay, awesome. How many of you see young people between the ages of 10 to 24? 1, 2, 3, 4, anybody? I know that there is a crowd over there who doesn't see, but they work with the dementia group at SCAR, so I hope you don't see young people there. But anybody else, 10 to 24? Yes, no? Okay. Now, I'd like to start off here by saying a quick African proverb, which is, it takes a village to raise a child, right? And it really has value that you cannot go ahead and say that one individual can care to take care of a child, because there are so many needs. And just imagine you were raising a Tamil 22-year-old in a French village when he doesn't know French, right? So 9 out of 10 times, the needs which are identified by adults are significantly different from the needs which the young people identify. So if we were to ever put this to use, that you need a village to raise a child, we need to make the village relevant to the child. Otherwise, there is no sense in just creating a village. So during the course of this next 10 odd minutes, we'll be talking a little bit about the objectives why we need to establish youth-friendly services, the methods, and contextualize the clinical services to your individual ways of working. So the why and what of youth-friendly services. So this has already been discussed. One in 3 Indian at this point of time is probably below the age of 24. 75% of all mental health problems begin before the age of 18. Age of onset of substance use is dropping. When I was doing my PG, the age of onset of smoking was supposed to be 14. And now the latest data shows that it starts at 10. So we are really exposing young people to a newer set of experiences which they have not had before. And this is an important thing. Less than 1/3 of individuals with mental health problems actually seek help or stay in treatment. And this is a staggering number given the fact that, as you can put all the numbers together, it's a really huge number. So unless we do something about this, there is no way that we are going to be able to, we are going to be dealing with residual illnesses rather than looking at preventing and promoting health. Which is why the role of what Sanjana and Hanisha just talked about is really important, wherein we engage with young people in order to make them aware that there is help available. They can take ownership of their health. They can take ownership of the health of their community. And that's the way forward. And this is something which is important to keep in mind, that there is a progressive increase in health inequities. So really quickly, I'm going to talk about why do we even think about youth-friendly services. So there is the theoretical concept. So by the time I graduated, college, there was Orkut, then there was Facebook, then there was Instagram, now there is Discord, and there are so many more newer technologies which are developing. And technology is developing at a really fast pace, and there is no way that adults can keep track of it. So who better to ask for help as to what is going on in the real world other than the youth? So the theoretical part is actually young people are more attuned to what is happening right now. One of the key things that we think, at least at the Rhymes, was that we are not the experts. We've had our hair gray, and the time for us being experts in youth mental health is past. People who have relatively black hair are probably the better experts, and they should actually weigh in. And that's one of the reasons why we keep making newer and newer programs, and that is important to keep in mind. There is the pragmatics. The pragmatic of having a youth-friendly health services. Okay, next poll. How many of you have worked in a government hospital psychiatric unit? Outpatient? Yes. How many of you have worked in a private hospital outpatient? Okay. How comfortable would you be to see if your child had to go to a psychiatric unit, how comfortable would you be to take your child to one of these psychiatric facilities? It could be this, or here. At a government hospital? Private hospital? Nowhere? And that is something important, right? When we are all empathic people and we all can understand the concerns that family members and young people have coming to a facility like SCARF or IMH or MMC outpatient department. And this is something important, and so clearly we do not make it very youth friendly. It is basically a space where you all come in, sit, you see somebody who's psychotic, somebody who's depressed, somebody who's manic, somebody who's something else. And there is also the part where why did the young person come? Because their parents have brought them there. It leaves such a bad taste in their mouth that clearly providing services after this, even if they wanted to seek help, we have already created a barrier. The next important thing to keep in mind is the political reasons, and I'm not saying about political correctness, but I'm talking about understanding that progressively we are seeing more and more individuals who are exploring their sexuality. They are exploring their own gender. People who come from different socio-economic strata but do not want to be treated as they belong from different socio-economic strata. So we need to create a place which has equality as one of its key components. So this is an activity which I think would be really helpful for all of us to start thinking about. So in your experience, who or which group of youth are not seeking help even though they need it? In your experience, you see them in the community. Can anybody? Anybody? Would you say that a person who's living, a young student who's in the 10th grade, or let's not say even 10th grade, 8th grade, who has a learning disability, studying in a government school, would he be an individual who's actually seeking help? Probably not. You're thinking about a 14-year-old, 15-year-old who's out in the community, hanging out with friends, smoking cigarettes. Would he be a person, right? And so clearly, why aren't they seeking help? What are the issues why young people would come to you? Either their parents drag them in or so on. But understanding that young people have different needs. So we have a school mental health, we ran a school mental health literacy program, and one of the key things that young people came and told us was, we want to talk about being stressed about the exams. They didn't want to know about depression, anxiety, psychosis. They wanted to know about how can they deal with their day-to-day problems. How could they deal with bullying? How could they deal with picking up fights and teachers who yelled at them? And so clearly, if we were to focus only on major mental illnesses, we would be losing out on a major population. And then the question arises, how would you go around finding solutions? And I can tell you right away that we do not have the answers. It has to come in consultation with the young people, and so that's where the concept of youth-friendly services even comes into play. So what are youth-friendly services? They are services which are effectively able to attract adolescents responsibly to meet their needs and succeed in retaining young clients for continuing care. So it's not a one-off thing. It is about establishing a relationship which can be sustained. And in order to do that, what are the ways, or how does it even work? So all of these things are important in the sense that there are methods of showing that they are acceptable and appropriate. There is evidence to show that these youth-friendly services are probably more effective. They are accessible and equitable. And most importantly, strong directions and flexible in local reality. And this is important because of sustainability. When I show the slides, I'm talking about areas like Malawi, Rwanda, and South Africa. I'm not talking about Sweden, Netherlands, and the Scandinavian countries which have got a small population and a huge health budget, right? I'm talking about interventions which can be done in the real world, and they are sustainable. So let's quickly talk about the how of youth-friendly services. So there is a concept of participatory design, which is basically the people who are using the services should be involved in creating the services. And so how do we go about doing it? The design should be service and experience based. So remember what I said about going into a government hospital the first time your parents drag you to see a psychiatrist? If the experience is negative, the likelihood of the individual seeking help is going to be less. So can we make the services more experientially better? we've talked about research. There is the need for young people to be involved in research, and there is always a problem with adult researchers asking young people questions and you get correct answers and then you're done with it. So rather than going over there, young people asking the questions would make it more relevant for other young people to answer them. There are social aspects. Like I said, we went from Orkut, we started off with no internet, to Orkut, to Facebook, to Instagram, and to Discord. The kind of conversations that young people have with each other is unique, and it is rapidly changing. So clearly, if we want to talk about patterns of engagement amongst young people, they need to be importantly discussing about what they want to explore. And finally, involvement. And this is something that Vijay had already talked about, varying levels of engagement, wherein the community, family, and individual's development needs to be taken into account. Okay, so when creating youth-friendly spaces, these are some of the characteristics that we would want to talk about. Broadly, we want to think about the facility. So we want to think about the space, what kind of a space it is, what are the work hours, surroundings, and supports that individuals have. For example, even though RHYMES is a community space for awareness, what we have is it runs on Fridays and Saturdays evenings, 4 to 6 p.m. It is available on other days if people are willing to come in later on in the evening. So clearly running a clinic, which most of us do, during the working or school hours or academic hours is clearly not feasible for young people to be engaged in. The surroundings. One of the key things that people have told us is scarf looks bad. Okay, and unfortunately young people find it intimidating. They find it scary to come into scarf and see the place crowded and having individuals of all sorts of mental health problems. So clearly we may have to create a separate space for them. When we talk about supports, we'll come to supports. But next is the program design, wherein we've talked about involvement in design. Young people may also want to start seeking help. Legally, somebody above the age of 18 is allowed to seek help for themselves, but they may not have the financial wherewithal to support themselves. So clearly, fees, having appropriate educational material. We had talk about medical jargon. Access and being inclusive is important. From the service provider perspective, there is training, respect, privacy, and time. And this, the last one, I think, in a country like India is going to be really difficult, but without dedicating that amount of time, clearly having a responsive youth is not going to be possible. So let's quickly talk about how SCARF, the Youth Mental Health Program under the supervision of Vijay, Dr. Tara, and Dr. Padma, have come up. So we've worked with the young people, and what we've done is we've had awareness, we've had research, but we've also engaged young people in developing a stepped model of care. So we've trained youth peer supporters. So peer supporters are present in, say, the colleges. We have a warm line wherein young people receive phone calls from the community. If required, they will make referrals to appropriate services. But these are young people who are responding to other young people calling in. And this is a stepped model of care because 9 out of 10 times they may not be dealing with any major mental health issues but need just a space to vent out. So having that space is really important. Next, working with families and communities. This is something that we've been trying to do through multiple methods. We've been working with school-based care, which is called the whole school model, wherein we are trying to engage with family members within the school so that they can make referrals. Academic institution and workplaces. Educating teachers, educators is really important. We work with health professionals. We are trying to educate them about the need for mental health services. We are trying to get them to start taking on responsibility for ongoing care of young people and so on. And finally, as is mentioned over here, we have only 3 psychiatrists doing the youth mental health program. And that's probably enough because we don't want young people to end up coming to a place like SCARF. We want to reduce the number of individuals of that, which is why the care begins from bottom up. And in a place like Crimes, we have a psychologist who may be able to do some sort of initial support and refer them out. And clearly providing support for young people where they are is essential. Now, that said, I would like to reiterate that in case we want to raise a healthy next generation, we need to involve them in making a decision about how they would want to take care of their health. And unless we do that, we are bound to make the same mistakes that our senior generations made against us. So I'm going to stop here and thank you all for your patient listening. And
Thank you. All the three speakers have done a very good presentation. Initially, I thought that when I look at the topic of youth engagement, I thought that it's talking about young psychiatrists. Actually, the youth engagement is entirely a different one. That is, you're looking at the youth in the community, and you are involve the youth in decision making. You involve the youth in their understanding their problems. If you want to do a research related to the youth-related problem, you engage the youth among the communities, and as a psychiatrist, we will be the mentor. But all the things was doing by the youth. So the involving the youth, it make a lot of differences. That's what it says. One small example is that, everybody knows about the Malala. Malala is the Pakistan girl. She was attracted to the world because when she was a child, you know that in Pakistan, is the Muslims, the girl child is not allowed to go to the school. They are not allowed to go to the studies. So this girl, she was fight for the education for the child. So she attracted the world. So she was being shot by these, she tried to kill by these Taliban, and finally she won the Nobel Prize for his work. How she attracted the world? Because she, as a young girl, she was talking about for problems related to the education related in the youth. So when you engage the youth people in voicing their issues, then the research says it will be more active. So when you engage the youth, for example, you do a research for young people, you engage that people. For example, you can engage them for data collections and analysis, everything you involve. But act as an adult, you can act as a mentor. That's what it says about. And the youth engagement is one of the topic, one of the thing. As we celebrate the World Mental Health Day, the WHO announced Youth Day on 25th of August. And that day, one of the theme of our 1 year is youth engagement is one of the theme. And also safe space, that speaker was talking about the safe space for the youth. The safe space means the youth can speak about their feelings without any fear. They will be in the environment that is very safe. They are not. They are free to allow to ventilate their problems and they express their problems. That is called the safe space, I think. And so these are all the things. The new concept as a mental health professional, we encourage the youth-related activities. So the promotion, if you want to say about, you want to do a community work and you engage the youth and you understand the youth, their problems, and you can ask them as an advisor. There's in Tamil Nadu, I was talking about one of my psychiatrists, one of colleague, Dr. Karthik Devanayagam. He was a district mental health psychiatrist in Pudukkottai district. Actually, he was doing that work. He goes to the community, the colleges, and he talk about these the college students and ask them to express their problems. He select one person, and that person will act as an ambassador for these mental health promotions. So these are all the things they are doing in the community. But actually the research, doing the research, youth engagement research is a new concept. The SCARF is doing a wonderful work. I think that engaging youth is not only increase their skills, not only increase their self-confidence, in fact it improves, it helps the community as a whole. I think that the psychiatrists will look into these youth engagement issues. Vijay Raghavan.
Thank you. I understand that engaging youth doesn't negate the fact that there are no mental health professionals. the mental health professionals are the core. I mean, we are there, and it is, but in a sense that we are also engaging with the young people to make them as equal partners, so that we will be able to learn both from both directions. And for example, in a research and things like that, they may not be able to, the youth may not be able to understand the core mental health issues or mental health philosophies or mechanisms and things like that. But at least they would be in a position to say that, okay, this is what we need. At the end of the research, we expect to see certain things like this. Those kind of can. And in the analysis and things also, they may not be able to do the exact analysis. But once we do the analysis and sit with them and ask them, we are interpreting the result something like this. Does it gel with your idea and things like that, so that it is not exactly they doing certain things, but actually we are doing, but just showcasing them and showing them that, okay, we are interpreting the result something like this. Do you think that it's right or wrong? So those kind of things will go a long way, because sometimes we interpret certain things in a particular way, but they would say in a very different way. So these are really important, and I think in the future we would be doing more of these things also. Thanks.
I have one question. What are all the problems you come across in the youth engagement programs you are doing, research and this clinical work, awareness work? What are the problems you come across? Practical problems?
The major problem what I see is that there are no way, I mean, where to find the young people to engage with. I mean, they are all busy with their workspaces, or they're very busy with their schools and colleges. That's one of the major issues. And also, many people are not a family. They have to speak with the family and get involved in these kind of activities. Many family members are not really happy to send young people as youth ambassadors or youth advisors to speak with mental health professionals itself. And from our side also, it is very difficult for us to sit with, on par with a 16-year-old or 17-year-old male or female, and ask them about what they think about mental health and what they want from mental health. They might not be the experts, and they might say certain things which is not really great, but at the same time, we do not want to offend them or talk in a particular way, so that we will be able to receive that in a more non-judgmental way and talk about this. So the problems are both ways. And as you rightly put, the concepts are really yearly, and we are still evolving, and in the future I think once these concepts are more matured among the mental health professionals itself, and also from the community point of view, I think we will be able to do much more meaningful engagement. And I think it's more meaningful to engage in colleges rather than in schools. But right now, Sanjana, Hanisha, these are fresh out of college, and we are able to engage with them, and they are able to do amazing job. I think there are a lot of young people are out there who will be able to do much more than this. And as mental health itself, it is not only particularly to mental health itself, but these young people are also thinking about how to improve my health and mental health through social other aspects, like transportation issues. And whenever, to be honest, whenever I discuss with them, whenever I talk about what are the major issues that they are going through, they would be talking about mental health, like stress and things like that, as a small one. But other things like financial issues, unemployment, and all these aspects are also playing a role and having an impact on their mental health. As mental health professionals, we may not be able to address these things. But if at all we are not finding a way to help them, that it's one another issue that we have to think about.
Question from the audience? Yes.
We work with both uneducated and others also, I mean from other uneducated group, because the needs of young people from different communities and different spaces are very different. And as WHO, I mean even these days, the interventions cannot be one size fits all. We have to develop interventions which are very local to particular population. For example, if at all you are going to develop an intervention for young people in schools and colleges, or more from upper middle class and things like that, the intervention design and the implementation. For example, we can implement the intervention for online media itself. But when you are trying to implement the same kind of intervention to person from a disadvantaged community, I think we have to rethink the whole program. In that sense, before implementing the intervention, we have to sit with them and ask them what are the resources available and what are the challenges that you are facing. If at all we are going to develop something like this, whether you will be able to take it or not. And based on that, taking into consideration of all these things and then developing interventions would be the best way to go ahead, I guess.
Uday Kumar sir?
Yeah. I'm just here to join hands of Paneer Selvam and Dr. A.R.S. Garu to appreciate this kind of work is being done in entire India. I think it's a first of its kind that we have here in this lecture. I really, from my bottom of heart, thank the Tara Garu and Vijay Raghavan, Sujina, Sanjana, all these youngsters, young Turks have come up to this, being working in this field of youngsters. I think you have bypassed the white-haired, the age, with wisdom and experience. You have just bypassed these issues, and then youngsters coming up to handle all these youngsters is really get tuned, and then I think you get to know many of the issues from the youngsters. That's really a matching. Youngsters towards tackling the youngsters' needs. It's really a matching. It's well worth. I think really appreciate. Thank you for bringing this topic to this South Zone. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So actually, when we are trying to engage youth in the treatment aspect, I feel that some of the youngsters, they are aware that by searching the social media and other these things, even they are coming with a diagnosis. Or even they are understand that they are not in a normal state. But convincing the family members that they are not normal is a big issue. I have few patients who they themselves are aware that they are having a problem, but they are not able to convince the family members to bring to the treatment because of financial. There are many other issues. That is one thing. And apart from that, from the parents' side, the problem is one is financial. The other thing is starting medication at the young age itself. If you start medication at the young age itself to the child or over the adolescent or youth, so how long this medication will go? That is one thing. Unmarried female, when you are starting a medication, so how the society will look into these things. So this stigma and those things are real barriers on working on these areas. What I would like to say is when you are doing these areas, try to promote in such a way that non-pharmacological approach is the mainstay of treatment in handling the adolescent as well as in youth. So the pharmacological approach is the last method like that. This message, I think, though we are trying to give again and again, is not reaching the society. They feel that when they come to psychiatrists, they will be labeled. Number two, they will be given medication. The medication will be for lifelong. So this stigma has to be broken down, yes, at least for the child and psychiatry, those things. Oppositely, I could able to see there is an like cancer, increased awareness in the unrequired area. Means bringing the child of 3 years, 4 years, means they are very anxious and saying that my child is maybe having autism, my child is maybe having some mental retardation, like that, without any having good amount of knowledge on that, they are bringing the child. So this is awareness in a wrong area. We have to address these areas. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, you can wind up, sir.
Thank you. I think, first of all, I want to thank the SCORF team and especially all these youngsters. See, all the speakers are also very young. I think their age range also between 20 and 30, not more than that. So, the speakers and the subject, and also special appreciation to the SCORF and Tara Madam and others. Other thing is, see, in our generation, main focus was on treating schizophrenics and bipolars like that, a mental hospital setup or a psychiatric hospital, general hospital setup. Now later it is alcohol and drug abuse, then suicide prevention. So these are some of the new areas where in our days there was not much focus on suicide prevention and other things. Now later has come the recent phenomena of all the change. Now, yesterday we heard about care of wandering lunatics or homeless mentally ill. See, these are some of the new areas. The younger generation, these are the challenges, and it is not that you just stick on to your consultation room and treat only schizophrenics and bipolars and some other drug abuse or like that. So there, depending on your interest and our aptitude, you can take up any of these new areas. These are challenging areas. Not so easy, just sit in this thing and write Risperidone or olanzapine like that. These are very challenging areas, and this is a very new area. And the society is also changing. The problems are also for youth are changing. So now there are more problems about substance abuse in any society, especially youth. And also the suicide problems are more in the youth. And relationship issues. This is another new area where every day we see in our OPs nowadays. Previously we were seeing more psychotics. Now we are seeing more youngsters with the relationship love failures and drug abuse and suicide attempts and borderline personality. These are some of the new challenges. And so the challenges are also new, and we have to gear up to all these things, the younger generation. And I am aware that the Vivekananda Youth organization in Bangalore, I think, I don't know whether it is there in Tamil Nadu or like that, they are also have been doing this type of youth training programs, personality development, some such thing, general programs. But none of them are mainly by psychiatrists or mental health professionals. They are just like any NGO, they do that. So here, it is more of a specialist like psychiatrists and psychologists and social workers and other youth taken from the society. So I think this is definitely a new initiative, and probably the young psychiatrist, there is a lot of scope. You need not stick on to just sitting in your consultation room and treat only schizophrenics and bipolars. Probably these are the new challenging areas which you can take up, and probably you can get a name and fame, and you can definitely do some contribution to the society and some good for the youth of this country also. With these closing remarks, let us give a big clap to the speakers and the SCARF team also. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was a fascinating session, Dr. Vijayaraghavan. Sharings of Dr. G. Sanjana, Dr. S. Sivaprakash, Dr. A. Hanisha were incredible. Your insight into the youth engagement in the field of mental health was an eye-opener. Thank you, doctors. I welcome the chairperson to honor the speakers.